I know I speak on behalf of many right here when I say that we're getting a little impatient for U.S. Soccer's pursuit of their next sporting director. We had a long investigation with Greg Berhalter and the Reynolds. It got a little hairy there for a while. And then the firm that was brought in, Sportico, I believe was the name, for U.S. Soccer to find the next sporting director. Well, after 3 months, they have completed the search. The new man in charge, former director of football operations of Southampton, a Premier League club, at least for a few more weeks, they're probably going to get relegated. Matt Crocker, who stepped away from that job, and now he will be announced here on Tuesday that he is the new sporting director for U.S. Soccer. And that doesn't just mean the men's program. It means the women's program. It means all 27 or 29 national teams under the umbrella of U.S. Soccer. It is a big, big gig. And that's part of one of the questions you want to ask here. How is this viewed? How is U.S. Soccer viewed? Remember, the man he is replacing, Ernie Stewart, left for a job at PSV Eindhoven. I will preface everything and tell you this. A job at a big club in the Premier League like Southampton, the sporting director equivalent, or PSV Eindhoven, is better than a national team job. The money's better. The resources are better. Everything at your fingertips is better off. Not all clubs, but those top clubs. And I would include PSV Eindhoven and Southampton on that list. You take the national team job for prestige. You take it for unique circumstances. And I would think whoever wants to take it is a bit of a romantic, and when was offered the job, sees it as a very special opportunity. The money's not going to be as good that you might get somewhere else, but you have an opportunity to help put U.S. Soccer, U.S. men's national team in particular, on the map in this stretch, the most important stretch for the sport in the country's history, from 2022 till, let's say, 2027, because U.S. Soccer might host the Women's World Cup. So this is going to be a massive stretch. And because all those other things, resources and the money and the contract, doesn't quite add up, you need somebody who says, I want this job. I want to be that guy that oversaw when soccer arrived in this country. And Matt Crocker has to have that within him to take this gig. Great credentials. He was director of football operations at Southampton, I think the last 3 years. When he got the job, the CEO of Southampton said, Matt was the outstanding candidate in Europe, head and shoulders above anyone else. So, look, if a Premier League club is going to bring you in for that, it's a good sign that you have been vetted and you're coming through there. So he was there for 3 years. Before that, he was with the English FA. And I will say this before I mention anything else here on the English FA. Developing players is the most important thing for this, from a U.S. men's national team perspective, in particular, for whoever takes over the sporting director. And he has good credentials here because of time at the FA and certainly at Southampton, where in his first tenure at Southampton, from 2006 to 2013, he was there when several great Southampton players were emerging. Gareth Bale, James Ward-Prowse, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Luke Shaw. Southampton has a really good pedigree at doing that. So development's the number one thing for whoever takes it. So Matt Crocker has that in that spell. We'll talk more about what he brings to the table today on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Joining me this week, Manuel Veth, who's with Transfer Market, also working on MLS. We'll talk about the sport here. We'll talk a little bit about this. We'll also mention the Bundesliga race. Him being German, it's coming down to the wire. It's very exciting. So check out the Soccer OG podcast. Like and subscribe us here. Hit that like button. Thumbs up city. So Matt Crocker, very good credentials. And as I said, the developing is the most important thing he is going to oversee during his tenure, which we imagine at least goes through 2026. The coaching search is the most important undertaking he has to find over the next couple months. I don't think they're going to announce a coach until June or July. They got to focus. Remember, it's all the national team. Women's World Cup is going to take priority here. And by the way, Crocker has experience with the women's game as he oversaw Southampton when their women's program was not even on the map, and now they're moving up in a good process. So it's all very new in the women's game, but Southampton were one of the better clubs pushing the women's game. So all of that comes into view, and let's talk about the coaching search here, because as you all have probably heard, or maybe you haven't, while at Southampton just a month or so ago, when they parted ways with their coach, he brought in Jesse Marsch to take the job. We heard it was a done deal, and there was a question about the tenure of the contract, and it didn't happen. But what it tells you is Jesse Marsch was on this guy's radar for the Southampton job, and you would imagine now that he's in charge of U.S. Soccer, where there are more ties that bind to Jesse Marsch, this seems like a no-brainer, a slam dunk that Jesse Marsch is going to be the next coach for the national team. It's hard to argue that, right? Jurgen Love is my number one choice. Maybe we can be very romantic and think of Jose Mourinho's a guy who goes, I want to take on this challenge. Not that likely. Maybe he defers and he goes into the U.S. There may be an MLS coach or something along those lines. But the information we have, Jesse Marsch, if there was a board, and there probably is a board at Vegas for favorites, he would be the clear favorite. I would then counter with that and tell you when things are so obvious, they usually don't take place. So they don't want to look obvious here. They want to look like they did a thorough search, much like this search for a sporting director, where they pulled that guy out that people are going, that came out of left field, to use an American expression. Matt Crocker, never heard of him. And the fact that it kind of came out of left field gives me some comfort. It means it's not business as usual from U.S. Soccer. They're not going to go for the obvious inside the beltway candidate. They went for somebody with great credentials that they vetted, that clearly said he wants this job and to take over, and they got him. The path less traveled, certainly. Now, there were reports of other sporting directors that were approached for this job, and the reports say that they turned him down. When you look at a certain kind of profile, there was Ernst Tanner, who's done an incredible job with the Philadelphia Union. I would be happy to see a guy like that who's got his feet wet in the United States. It's not a necessity. Some would say it'd be better if they didn't have some familiarity with the U.S. and the U.S. system. I would say you're wrong about that. It helps. Every sporting director and every coach in almost every country is from that country. Lionel Scaloni was a former player. Now he's the coach of Argentina, who won the World Cup. Didier Deschamps the same. The executive levels are more often than not. The argument then becomes United States doesn't have that level of know-how that England or Italy or Spain or Argentina or Brazil have. And we don't. But we didn't need someone to hold our hand. We do have. There was a clip taken with Charlie Davies on the new CBS Soccer Golazo morning show. And it says they've got to kind of understand the U.S. soccer culture. And people say, we don't have a culture. And we do have a culture. Is it defined? Is it fleshed out? No, not there. We do need a little bit of help. And we've always leaned into help, whatever country they're from. But we have a culture. And we're willing to learn. We've always been that way. When it's been the executive, from the coaching, to the players, to the broadcasters, we always lean into other soccer cultures to kind of show us the way. At some point, we got to do it for ourselves. U.S. Soccer has been doing that. But I think that has to be respected. But I get the feeling that Matt Crocker would respect that. Otherwise, he wouldn't take the job. So that has to be developed. You've got to promote the U.S. men's national team DNA. You've got to build from within. And you have to have a good sensibility because you're dealing with Americans at every step of the way. So I think Matt Crocker is going to lean into some of that know-how to others, although he is going to be ultimately the guy who makes the decisions. He's not going to come in here and go, all right, mate, here's the way we're going to do it, all right?
We're bringing in Big Sam Allardyce. He's going to be the coach. And
I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a Roy Kent impression.
he's going to be the coach. And that's that. We're going to play this kind of style of football. And we're going to call it football. And then we'll move on.
He's not going to do that. Don't worry, it's not Sam Allardyce who's coming here. So you've got to lean into some American sensibilities. I like what we've done. I like our identity. It's us. It's flawed, but it's us. As I want to just circle back on the priority of developing players, and I didn't quite flesh out his entire resume, but we had the 2 stints with Southampton, and then in betweens with the English FA. When the English FA and the youth teams, he was in charge of that, really broke through. Youth, we are in this country. I know we have the talent there. We always hear the story of players slipping through the cracks. But we have a country unlike any other. It's huge. We have players developing in the South, in the Midwest, in the Mid-Atlantic, in New England. We have players developing in Alaska now. So we have the talent, I'm sure. It has to be developed and put on the right pathway. It hasn't gone well historically from U.S. Soccer. Maybe Matt Crocker can help it move a little smoothly and help identify those players. Because that is where we make a breakthrough, okay? We're such a big country, we have these players, but that is where we make a breakthrough. And Matt Crocker's time at the English youth speaks for itself because they won an under-17 World Cup, and all those youth players now on the English senior team, you want to imitate England right now. This is the best their national team has looked ever, quite frankly. Yes, Euro final, World Cup semi, World Cup quarter. Almost made a semifinal twice at the World Cup. So those credentials are very good in that. I would like to say I support the Matt Crocker move. I have a couple questions. One, how far down was he the pecking order? As I mentioned, Ernst Tanner turned down the job. Mike Jacobs at Nashville said no. Peter Vermees, I spoke to him personally, said he had a conversation. Oguchi Onyewu was in there. Was he behind all those guys? Was he their first choice and we just heard these names come after? I would like to know. And the other part is how much power are they going to give him? Because they're going to have to loosen the reins. But the fact that they went after Matt Crocker tells me that they might be in the process of doing that. The third question would be, who's going to be the coach? And we'll talk about that at a later date. We've got to be happy that at least we've got somebody in position. This could have dragged on longer. But now we have some structure and we can move forward. Again, I don't think it's going to be Anthony Hudson. I think they're going to try and set up Anthony Hudson. I don't think it's going to be Greg Berhalter. I think Greg is in a position now where he can go and pursue a club job, which I think he'll be great at. It could be Jesse Marsch. It could be a big international name. I think some people would think if you have an international sporting director, maybe go American with the coach. It would seem to make sense. I don't think it's so black and white where you do that. Could you go international both? Yeah, you could. You could do the full pivot. Is that the one-all end-all that's going to fix things here? Absolutely not. And by the way, whatever happens under the watch of Matt Crocker heading up to 2026, the only thing he can compare it to is what happened from 2019 to 2022. And what ended in 2022 is the U.S. had a good World Cup. You could say they didn't, but I want to just... we've seen it from the players now. Our talent level's not there yet. And at the World Cup, I thought we exceeded the level of our play. We still couldn't score goals. We should have beaten Wales. We hung with England. We could have maybe got something more out of that. And then we were able to get by Iran. And then we got a couple lessons from the Dutch. But there was no guarantee we were going to get out of the group. Greg Berhalter did a good job. They did a good job because right now I don't think our talent level... And we all say in 2026, we circled it on the calendar. We've all said, we're going to make a semifinal. I want to put it at a quarterfinal, but even that's going to be tough. And remember, this is an expanded World Cup with 48 teams. Will that help or hurt the U.S.? I don't know. I think it would help. But the talent has to get better, certainly at a lot of positions. And I don't see a lot of new faces right now that can unseat the players that are there. There's work to be done there. There is work to be done there, and we need all the help we can get. So I support Matt Crocker's appointment. I like his credentials. Cindy Parlow-Cohn and JT Batson said they're going to go to the beat of a different drummer, so to speak, and they have so far with this. They vetted him with a lot of big-name coaches. Mark Krikorian, who's with the Washington Spirit, former Florida State coach. They signed off on this Matt Crocker as well. Seems like he has all the ingredients, and we've got to support whoever is in here. I'm just happy we filled the job. Getting the coach right is huge. I cannot emphasize how important Crocker, look, a huge job for someone coming from the outside, gets this, because we can get set back if the World Cup experience is not what we hope for. Maybe we're overselling it, how far we can get, but we have to at least get to the round of 16 and show some promise. And we all roll up our sleeves in this, right? But good signs that U.S. Soccer went after a professional caliber sporting director and just looking at through different lenses. So much more to know about Crocker. I'm looking forward to seeing him at work. We need some new ideas. This was a bad stretch for a lot of reasons on U.S. Soccer. Historically, the way we do business in this country is weird, and we need to, it's not going to all change, but some of that has to be loosened up a little bit. The Soccer OG, we'll continue the conversation about this. We will talk about the coaching search, and we have a lot to look forward to. But we have somebody in place. Like and subscribe our videos, and let's all support it. We're going to be together on this. That's what we do in this country.